Hey, everybody. Welcome in. Happy Wednesday. It is May the 28th. Welcome to Morning in the Valley. I'm Jeff Bidwell. Glad you are with us today as we will catch up with SIU radio voice Luke Martin coming up in about 10 minutes as we are just T-minus hours at this point from really starting officially the 2025-26 college basketball season. The women's team starting to arrive. I know Murray State, they had their first summer workouts yesterday on the women's side. And then really this weekend, June 1 is kind of that post-Memorial Day. Teams start showing up and that's when it's go time and you start getting into the summer workouts and it all kind of becomes real as rosters are put together. And we're going to get into that coming up today. But Luke has spent some time over the last couple of weeks talking to the new members, some returners, but some new members of the SIU program. And so we're going to talk with him and get his impressions on what he has heard from those current and future Salukis as we get ready for year number 2 of the Scott Nagy era. If you haven't done so yet, please head on over to YouTube, search out Morning in the Valley, subscribe to that page so you can help us continue to grow as we're just about 2 months into this little project, and hopefully you guys have enjoyed it and we're not going anywhere. So we're looking forward to more throughout the summer. All right, as we start today with headlines of the morning. The first one, and this is probably as much as anything a reminder that as much as we think we know what rosters are right now, until kids get to campus, none of it really matters. It matters, just not official. Guys change course all the time, and sometimes in the 11th hour. Certainly in this transfer portal era, certainly in in the NIL era, and sometimes it's just maybe you didn't academically qualify. There's lots of things, and you see kids sign, you see kids commit, and you're trying to do the math in your head now that the number on the men's side, has grown from 13 to 15 for schools that have opted into the house settlement. That you kind of get an idea of where you are, but sometimes the math doesn't work. And that's one thing. We're going to get to that in just a minute at Northern Iowa. But first thing is first, over the weekend, they have announced the signing of Levi Valdo, 6'4". He is a native of Cameroon, but has played professionally in Italy. He's going to be 20 years old at the end of June, has played in a third-tier pro league there in Fidenza, Italy, and had a very successful season coming off. What I was able to find, averaged about 16 points a game. That led his team second in rebounding, 6.5 a game. And went and got 2.5 games. So obviously a very aggressive player there on the floor. Not a great shooter, about 39% from the floor, 27% from three, but certainly made up with that. Obviously, again, crashing the board and finding other ways to impact the game on the offensive end. So again, just the quick, like on a napkin math right now of Northern Iowa. And they were one of those teams, much like Illinois State. We talked about, in April about retention and how many kids they were bringing back. And, the number for them was 11. And so you've got 11 returners. They have signed 2 freshmen back in the fall, Jalen Wilson and Gian Hutchins. Well, that gets you to 13. And now, along with Baylor transfer Marino Dubravcic, NC State transfer Ishmael Doof, and a transfer out of the NAIA program Concordia, Tristan Smith, the All-American there. Then you throw in Levi Valdo, you're at 17. So obviously the math isn't mathing at that point. But again, this just goes back to nothing is official yet with rosters until the kids get to campus. And this is not a, this isn't some sort of nefarious deal about, they've screwed up or they've oversigned or whatever. It just ultimately means something has happened behind the scenes that just hasn't been publicized. And whether it is the 11 returners, whether it was the freshmen, that sometimes the best laid plans, 2 months ago, maybe 1 month ago, ultimately have changed, and they're not going to come to UNI. But that's just something to look at here, in the next week or two, when they officially put up their 25-26 roster, and you're looking for the 15 guys, because, with the House settlement, and this is the days of, with this House settlement, we've gone to roster limits, which is basically, it's basically eliminated the concept of walk-ons, at least in men's basketball. And so you can have 15 kids and that's it. And so regardless, even if somebody was going to be a walk-on, they've got to fit into the 15. So the fact they're at 17 right now, it's just a question of, okay, what didn't go right for a couple of guys? I'm just from a standpoint of, you're trying to, and again, I'm 3 states away, so trying to figure out, just trying to kind of piece the mystery together. You feel strongly about these 4 transfers that have come in, just with the fact that, they have published in the last 3 weeks, they have published stories on their website about, hey, we've signed these transfers. Okay, so those 4, I would more lean towards, is one of the freshmen, did something happen that they're not coming, or just one of the returners that'll get you down to 15. But that'll be something, I don't know if it's a mystery as much, but we will try to solve that mystery here in the coming week or so, before everybody reports to campus to start their summer workouts. Scheduling. That is now that the rosters are all but set for so many folks. Now it has become a case of schedule. Everybody's antsy about non-conference schedules and wanting to see who our folks are going to play. And we've got a couple of those games that have come onto the board. Belmont is going to play at UC Irvine December the 19th. That is a back end of a home and home from last year. Irvine came to Nashville, beat the Bruins 92-84. Irvine was a very good team last year. Top 70 in the Ken Palm, got to the NIT championship game, 32-7. You hope they're going to be that kind of have that kind of a resume this year to be able to help Belmont's non-conference schedule. Indiana State is going to host Southern Indiana on December the 7th. That is the final game of a 4-year home and home series. Love those in-state matchups. Love them to be able to continue. I know there's a lot of folks wondering when Evansville and Southern Indiana going to get together for the Battle of Evansville. Hopefully that can get done at some point. And then Southern Illinois, we knew was going to play North Dakota State, another, again, back end of a home and home. Last year, North Dakota State came to Carbondale and got waxed 69-44. This was a team that won 21 games last year, was 135 in the Ken Palm. Upset early in the Summit League tournament, but again, a good road game for SIU, and hopefully the Salukis are going to make a giant leap here in year number 2 of the Scott Nagy era. And speaking of the Southern Illinois Salukis, as he sits up nice and straight, because posture is the key. Welcome in the voice of the Southern Illinois Salukis, Luke Martin. Good morning.
Hey, posture's everything, Jeff Bidwell. It's just your voice in the morning was just making me so relaxed.
It's like the principal's ready to call on you, and you're like, "Oh boy, let me see."
Yeah. Now I'm getting called on in class, so now I got to participate. So,
how's the spring going? Have we gotten over all of our baseball angst we felt like we need to work out here the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, no, it's been nice. I'm actually visiting some family here back in Indiana, so it's good to kind of take a little bit of a week here to unplug, dive, kind of get out of the realm. As you know, Jeff, when you start with football, football really starts there that last week of July, first week in August, and you don't get no separation. You go straight into basketball, and for those fortunate like me, you jump straight into baseball, and baseball for the Salukis obviously wrapped up last week, and now finally get a little bit of time. And then, as you were saying, man, it's no longer days, you're hours away from these basketball practices starting. And for the Salukis, their first one will be June 2nd on Monday.
Year 2, I sat and I caught up on all of your you're building the Salukis podcast with some of your returners, some of the new guys you've put together over the last couple of weeks. And I think the one thing that, I guess, a theme that jumped out, especially with the returners that you were kind of pushing on with these guys, was we know last year didn't go the way we all wanted it to go. This year, I don't want to say that you sort of, they're really thinly veiled threats to them, but it was like, fellas, it's time. Let's go. Winning is always important. It just feels like the wavelengths coming from Carbondale, it's dialed up a little bit this year that it's time.
Yeah, Jeff. And even further to that point, it's not just asking them, hey, how important or what have you talked about winning in the offseason? It's what are you going to do to make winning happen, to make that a priority? And, I don't know if, look, in this day and age with the transfer portal and trying to put teams together on a year-to-year basis, it's not easy. I think everyone understands that. But, I really enjoyed when you were kind of going in. It was a couple of weeks back, actually, may have been more than a month ago, when you were talking about Jay Billis's rant of how Wichita State now could get Kansas's fifth best player. All right, look, no one's getting a guy from the Power 4 level that's averaging 10 points or more to come down. No. And that's so true. And why I bring that up is, look, you can't always look at necessarily what someone did previously and say that's totally going to translate, whether it's scoring a lot of points at a lower league or whether it's only averaging 2 or 3 points at the biggest of all leagues. The bottom line is, how are you going to translate? How are you going to fit into your current system? How are you going to be a teammate involved in this new scheme? And when you look at the best teams in our league over the last couple of years, continuity, no doubt, is part of it. But you have to have a team that truly has bought into one another. And no doubt continuity makes it a heck of a lot easier to have that buy-in, which, of course, we saw last year with Drake, the year prior, still with Drake and Coach DeVries, but Coach Schertz's team at Indiana State, they had a lot of skill. But, man, those guys would battle for one another. And that's what's hard in today's day and age, and why I have asked so many of our guys, what's most important to win? What's the attribute, what's the characteristic that you believe you have to get over that hump to win? And that's what I look for, Jeff, more than anything. It's not so much, okay, what did this guy average in the SoCon or the Southland or the A10, wherever you're getting him from, is were they part of a team that won? Have they been a part of teams that have won in the past? Mm-hmm. If they haven't, that's a little bit of a red flag for yours truly, because if you're going to talk about winning, you need to have been a part of it in some form or fashion. And every of these guys that we talk to at the high school level have success, but have you had success? Have you been around success? Even if you didn't play a ton, just being around teams that had success, to me, is a huge indicator. And that's what I look for when you look at teams, of who they're getting. Are they getting guys from teams that won and had success? Or are you getting guys from teams that honestly did not have much success?
There's always tiers to the acquisitions, and whether it's hey, got a guy from Division II that averaged 20 a game who's coming up. Hey, we got a guy from, Texas Tech. He's coming in. He averaged 1.2 points a game. And it's like, all right, how are they going to fit at our level? I feel like if we sort of rank the most impactful on May 28th, the most impactful portal acquisitions, I think the ones that are most significant are the guys that have been at this level and have been really good at this level. And that is Isaiah Stafford. I feel like he is as good of a pickup as we've seen in this league for a guy that averaged 17 a game at Valpo 2 years ago. Your conversation with him, I thought the thing that jumped out to me was he thought the year away and having to sit out last year sort of helped him grow and for maybe from mental, whatever it may have been. But what was your impression of Isaiah, and really what's your level of excitement to get a proven Valley guy to be able to come in and lead that backcourt?
It's hard to find proven guys, and no doubt he is a proven commodity within this league that everyone throughout the league understands when he is at his best, even though Valpo during his time didn't necessarily compete for any of the league titles when he was there, but man, he was a really good player and a really big reason why a year ago they were like, man, if we only had Isaiah Stafford, imagine how much better, the Beacons could have been. And that's a very fair point. What struck me are obvious things, to me, you really, when you get a chance, and it's why I enjoy doing the interviews, you get a chance to see how guys are, not just in terms of, and I've seen Isaiah do interviews before and talking with my good friend Brandon Vickery at Valpo, who does a great job. He was really singing his praises, how great of a young man he was, all those things. But it's also just, hey, how good are they at communicating the setup interview times, and all those things. And Isaiah was spot on the whole time, was really good when it came to that. And then in the interview, he glowed. And you could tell just how great of a personality he's going to be in that locker room. And then you mix in, man, this is a dude that's got a lot of experience within this league. But he's got experience in Carbondale, Jeff. He played at John A. Logan. He won a national championship at John A. Logan. I know that may not necessarily be a massive detail to a lot of people, but
dude, that's a powerhouse junior college that I think outside the Midwest people may not know.
Yeah, and it's more to this, Jeff, is look, and it's not that there are great cities within our league, but as you know, if you want to go play in Carbondale, you got to understand what that community is about and the expectation, not just the expectation level, but you are the show in the region, and there's not a lot of big cities that are necessarily around you. So you have to be used to that sort of small town feel where everybody knows who you are. And Isaiah knows that because he's already lived virtually in Carbondale already, being at John A. Logan. So there's not going to be much of a period where you're like, man, can it translate to the league? We know it translates to the league. Well, is he really going to adapt well to Carbondale? He's lived in Carbondale already. So he checks all the boxes. Just the biggest one you got to check is, are you healthy? Right. And do you still have that ability that you had prior to your injury? And like you said, that's why I wanted to pick his brain on where is he at mentally heading into the summer, because this is about the time last year where he did get hurt and tear his ACL. I think once you initially get over that mental hurdle, there's a lot of great things that can happen. And obviously Saluki Nation and Saluki fans are hoping for a positive result when it comes to Isaiah.
He's a kid that I think if you want to go glass half empty, to be like, okay, is he a good stats, bad team guy? Averaged 17 a game in this league, didn't get all league honors, 2 years ago at Valpo. But again, just the pedigree of winning has shown he can play in this league. And just, I think just the year away. And sometimes it's just, you see the game in a different perspective, and you're less focused on, I've got to go play. And now it's more focus of, I'm going to maybe listen a little, hear what the coaches are telling me, and just grow as a basketball player mentally. That I think that's something to get into Scott Nagy's system, that, if he can score 17 a game for you guys, God bless. But I feel like, just his maturity, and for an older coach that, has his ways, that I just feel like he's going to just fit right into that and be such a huge piece for you.
Yeah, that's what we're all hoping for. And I know that's what the coaching staff, when you are putting pieces of a puzzle together. It's not just, hey, we need to finding skill is no doubt the most important thing, and what you're looking for when you're doing this. I do credit being around Josh Schertz, for me, really opening my eyes to this is, yes, you are doing your best to dive in, to see what talent you have, but you also got to make sure, are these pieces going to fit together, Jeff? And that is ultimately what, I think this year, look, Scott Nagy, his profile and what he's done as a head coach, he's proven that he can win. He can win at multiple different levels. He can win at different schools. That's not in debate. But this is a new era for everybody. I think what's really going to be shown this year for him is he had a year where he's been honest, and he was honest with you. Hey, we did not construct a roster that was good enough last year. He's had time. The support is there as well within the community and within the school to help him find the right pieces. And that's what you want to see this year, is you want to see a better team, and not just a better team, but a better, well-constructed group together where you go, man, you know what? That staff did a tremendous job of not just going out and finding better players. They were able to find a better group together. And maybe at times collectively, maybe you don't have as much talent. I think that's always a tough thing for me to gauge is, oh, do you have more talent? You know, is this roster more talented than other rosters? I mean, to me, that stuff is not necessarily important. What's important is the team going to win? And I think that's what this group has been working towards, and that's what is important about this time period coming up here on Monday is, are you going to have a group that's going to get together, that's going to buy in and want to be for the common good for everybody, not just for their individual accolades?
You have like, I don't, this is not throwing any shade of any kind towards any past staffs and anything. That there's always been, and our friend Mike Reese posted something a few weeks ago, that there's always sort of been a disconnect, I guess, between John A. Logan and Southern Illinois. And John A. Logan said that it is a powerhouse junior college. They send guys to the Power 4 level, won national championships, but it just feels like, okay, here's Isaiah Stafford. Yes, he had a stop over to go to Valpo, and now he's back. You're bringing Caden Hawkins in, and yes, he's a legacy. His dad Shane, the great gunner from the outside back in the 90s. So there's some connectivity there, but is it too early to maybe read into something that may or may not be there? That you got talent right down the road, you know, and in this era of trying to get guys, and what it's like, they're 5 minutes down the street and there's a lot of talent. It's like, is it maybe more of a little more of a priority for Coach Nagy, you think?
I mean, he spent a lot of time this past year going to a lot of their games. And I think you can say it's a priority, right, Jeff? I mean, everybody can use words and say, oh yeah, this is valued, but your actions speak louder than your words. And knowing that Scott Nagy put a lot of time into going over the John A. Logan over this past year, to not just look at the guys that, of course, have ultimately come here to SIU. You mentioned Kane, of course, continuing the family tradition, but obviously, Isaiah Stafford spending time there. And look, it's not even fair for me to be able to compare previous staffs because I only had 1 year under Coach Mullen, so I didn't really get a chance to. I mean, I got to know him really well as an individual, but I never got to really pick his brain on the why or why not. Maybe there were more John A. Logan guys that would come over and be a part of the program because the Smith-Peters family has been such an integral part of that John A. Logan machine just down the road in Carbondale. And of course, they have tremendous ties to the Salukis program as well. And I would say it's an emphasis. I think it's important, when you have tremendous talent that is literally in your backyard. I mean, Jeff, for those that don't know, I mean, it's maybe, from SIU's campus, maybe it's a 10 to 15-minute drive, if that. It's kind of the halfway point in between Marion and Carbondale. So it's right there. And Greg Sterrick, who's a Saluki Hall of Famer, still obviously a prominent, I believe, athletic director there at John A. Logan. So there are plenty of Saluki Hall of Famers that are there, people who have Saluki ties. And, I mean, take advantage of it. It's right in your backyard. It can be a huge, huge piece for you.
You've gotten a chance to talk to some of the incoming freshmen. Jalen Haynes coming from Sunrise Christian Prep School over in Kansas. You talked with Luke Walsh as well. We've reached a time in college basketball where feels like you can play until you're 30 if you've got the right waiver. I'm going to need to see some ID before the Racers and Salukis play, because I'm listening to those two kids talk, and I can't be sure that neither of them are the leaders of a household of 4 and have a minivan and a mortgage. Like, they were the two most mature incoming freshmen that I have heard in a long time talking with you. I mean, what a breath of fresh air. And again, mature freshmen, not the worst thing in the world to have.
No, and Jalen, that was the first time I've talked to him and was so impressed. As you said, he was one, just not in terms of just his maturity. And I know maturity goes into it, but it was just also like you could see he was processing questions. He was actually giving good answers. It wasn't canned answers. It wasn't cliche things. Like, he was having a really good time processing everything that we were throwing at him. And Luke Walsh is a very excuse me, special talent, but it's more his commitment level, Jeff. I mean, he went to so many games this past year, and I would hate to put a number on it. And there were even a lot of games away from Carbondale that he would travel to. Now, he's from the St. Louis area, so it's not like he's incredibly far away. I've not seen that a ton, Jeff.
Yep.
I've really not seen a lot of guys that would spend their own money, that would travel. Him and his dad did a lot of it, but sometimes it would just be him. He'd go to Peoria. He'd go to wherever to see the sorry, I got caught up here, but to see the Salukis play, that stood out to me more than anything. And that's why I think Luke's going to be a really good piece. He's already bought in. He's bought into the culture and wants to be a part of it.
Looking at the returners and let you cough that out. Looking at the returners, the one name that jumped out to me is Drew Steffi. And when I look back at last season, and look, he came in and ended up starting 19 games. And one of the two home games the Salukis had against the Racers last year, there was one game, and I don't remember which one it was, that SIU does something great, and Steffi comes in front of the Racer bench and is just woofing. And and I don't even think he made the play. Somebody else did something, and he is just running his mouth. And he runs right in front of us on Radio Row. And I just remember thinking, all right, I'm going to be the old man on the, sitting here on the porch, barking at the clouds. And I'm like, well, some good sports dislike is always healthy. That's good. That kid, all right, he's public enemy number one, and and that's fine. And then I sit and I watch Drew Steffi talk to you. And all I could think the whole time was, damn it, Luke Martin. I love this kid. I'm like, the personality just coming out of him. And I was like, he has to be number one with a bullet in terms of just at least potential, if he's not there already, to be like the fan favorite of just everything about him. That, yeah, he's going to run his mouth a little bit, and when things are going good, they're going to love that. But just the personality, I was like, that's a dude you want to go hang out with. And certainly from a locker room perspective, couldn't imagine a better representative for that program.
Yeah, you gotta have an edge about you, Jeff. And I think of during my time, it would have been, I think, the year before you took over full-time play-by-play duties there at Murray. But Cam Henry was a guy at Indiana State that came over with Josh Schertz. And Cam is a guy, if you look from an outside perspective, if you were from another team, you're like, I can't stand this guy. He talks constantly. Any official's call, he complains about. And you're just saying, you're going through all these things. You're like, man, like that guy has to be a pain in the rear end. Couldn't have been a more respected, just great human being than Cam Henry when you got a chance to really get to know him behind the scenes. And him and Drew are different, but to that perspective, Drew, first-class dude. When you get a chance, the opportunity to just sit down with him and look, and you could say, okay, sit down in front of a camera. But even if you just walk up to him in the hallway, if you have a chance to just speak to him, he's not going to be one of those guys that pulls his hood up and keeps walking or just kind of does a head nod. Like, no, he's going to stop there. He's going to shake your hand. He's going to talk to you. He's going to remember your name. He's going to ask how you're doing, and not just a BS how you're doing. Right. There's a legit connection there. And he's grown so much in that time. And that's where, for me, Jeff, and look, we all get into it, man. When we're on press row and you're with your teams and you see guys that show an edge, and when
they're the enemy,
there are things that come through your head. You're like, my goodness, gosh, that's annoying. And your fans love it when you get in those modes. But then when you get an opportunity to actually talk to them, it's exactly what you said. It's like, that's why it's so important what you're doing, Jeff. I'm not just doing this to blow smoke, but it's why Coach Watson and I, it's important for us throughout our season to try to bring on opposing coaches. And, people are like, man, Casey Alexander looks like a rough, rugged guy during games. Like, he can't be fun to talk to. And then you bring him on, he's one of the best conversations. Yes, one of the best conversations they have, and he's just a straight shooter. And he gets that that's important to do. And that's why you need to try to not just look, we want our fans to get to know our guys, and we're going to pub our guys up at the highest level. But when you get into a season, Jeff, that's why it's so important to just take some time to get Titan Anderson on, or to get some of these better players throughout the league that we're going to get to know. Duke Dean we had on this past year. We had so many of our fans go, man, like, those are really classy dudes, right? Yeah, like, we're proud of those that are here in Carbondale, but there are classy dudes throughout this league, and not just classy dudes, but there are really good players in this league, and you have to spotlight those guys, and that's why it's important to not just have a stranglehold or an importance on the teams you cover on a day-to-day basis. It's important to provide that platform throughout the league, because we can all kind of get into our silos of our own teams and not really look elsewhere. Man, there are some good dudes, man, and Drew Steffi, no doubt, is one of them, and he was one of the most improved guys last year, without a doubt. Through the last month of the season, he was a completely different player than what he was in early November.
Davion Sykes came on late, probably hit the biggest shot of the season there at the buzzer in St. Louis to get you into the quarterfinals there at Arch Madness. I got the sense from listening to you talk to him that there was some disappointment certainly about last season as a whole, but the thing that, again, old man on the porch barking at clouds, I was heartened by him saying, I never considered leaving. And what is it about his personality that you've gotten to know where it's just like, yeah, that math checks out with him?
Yeah, that's a rarity in today's day and age. And again, not to sound like a broken record from previous interviews that you and I have done, but I just think now the way to go when our seasons come to an end, Jeff, is you just assume everybody's gone. Right? I mean, as sad as that is, and then look, I get a lot of fans who will chime in and be like, why is this guy announcing he's coming back? Like, why do you have to say these things? I'm not saying I necessarily agree or disagree with it, but that's the day and age we're in. And when that final horn hits in St. Louis, as hard as that horn is to hear, when you know your season is over, the finality of that horn, you basically look at it and go, it's not like in years past where you're like, I mean, it really hit me this year more than any other year when I'm talking to Coach Watson and we're like, all right, Coach, let's look towards next year. What can we say? I mean, there are things we hope, can come to fruition. I mean, that used to be an important part of our broadcast. The end of year is all right. Let's kind of do a mini short version in the next year, what to look for. Now it's like, man, after our current seasons, that's a waste of time because of how much will change, not just in the coming days, but in the coming months after the season concludes. But look, Davion had a rough start to the year last year. He was someone that, going into it, I had multiple different coaches that I've worked for that have worked with that are assistants at different programs. And so many of them are like, man, we looked at Davion through the recruiting process. We wanted him. Like, we think you got a really good get in Davion Sykes. And it just never came to fruition. And look, I think there's always, Davion said it in our interview, he wants to prove that he's a 3-level scorer, that he can score at multiple different levels. He doesn't just want to, a lot of his shots at his previous stop, came right at the rim, right at the basket. Now, he had I think he had maybe 6 or 7 double-doubles at Texas State before he came over. So, like, he's been a stat sheet stuffer in his college career. But again, there was so much that was new, not just for him, but new for the staff as well. And again, I know I've said this before, but having more continuity, him being one of 6 guys who are coming back that know what to expect from a Scott Nagy practice, know what to expect from the assistants, that know what to expect at least from the 5 other guys that are along with them that have been through the battles over the course of the last year. Again, he wants to show that he has more in his tank. And to me, that's what you want. You want a guy to bet on himself that doesn't just want to try to go somewhere else just because, well, maybe I'll play more, maybe he won't. He understood that probably the best situation for him is the one that's in front of him. And if he can continue to show the improvement when he was in games towards the end of last year, again, he had the biggest shot, as you mentioned, to beat Indiana State there in Arch Madness. He played well in the final weeks of the season. So hopefully that can continue and he can be, there are so many. I mean, I can't even just pinpoint one guy, but Jeff, there are so many guys throughout this league where you see for a little bit and you're like, I don't know what to expect from them. And then all of a sudden, boom, it just clicks and guys play at a high level. And no doubt they hope Davion Sykes can be one of the key guys, because out of those 6 guys who are coming back, those guys got to play huge roles with this team. It just can't be all on the new guys who are coming in. Those 6 guys got to make strides.
The 9 guys you talk to, and you're building the Salukis podcast, you talk to returners, you talk to transfers coming in, you talk to freshmen coming in. A common thread, not all 9, but I think a majority of them, there was some version of the reason I'm coming to SIU, the reason I'm staying at SIU, Coach Nagy's track record of winning is important. And that, one, what a North Star to sort of be there for Scott Nagy, to people to gravitate to. But his track record shows last year was a blip. And certainly that has to have, as we get ready for year number 2, has to have provide a level of optimism around the entire program.
Yeah, and I think of a guy who I think out of the 9 guys that I've talked to this point, hopefully going to get a few before the summer, and then we'll talk to everybody once they get here in the summer. But I think of a guy like Kelron House, who comes in from Jacksonville State, was on an NIT team that beat Georgia Tech in the NIT. That was a key role in terms of being a point guard for that team. He was around winning and around winning at the Division I level in Conference USA. That to me is a good addition, and you hope as a guy that can bring those traits from a good team last year and transfer it over. And one of the things that he said, look, when I was meeting with Coach Nagy, like, I believed in his vision and I believed in his track record. Like, he has shown throughout the years that this is going to be a coach that's going to have his team prepared, and more times than not, they're going to be competing for the regular season championship more than like this past year, where they're sitting around 8 or 9 and hovering towards the bottom after what was a brutal start in the league, to then turn it around, but never truly gotten to that position where you're like, oh, you're competing for a league championship. That's the expectation for Coach Nagy. He has said it. I believe he said in your interview, I know he said it in multiple interview sayings in his opening press conference, he puts a lot more value on a regular season championship than he does a tournament championship. And now we all know in our league, and I love the optimism from Jeff Jackson with you this past year, saying, man, if Drake fell short, that Drake would have ultimately went on to the tournament. I hope that would have been the case. But I think more times than not, now at our level in our league, it's going to be really hard for teams that do not win that tournament to get an at-large bid. So a lot of the emphasis is going to be on that tournament, and that's a little bit different than what Coach Nagy has done in the past. But if you put value on winning a regular season championship, if you win a regular season championship, Jeff, that no doubt puts you in the best position to ultimately win the conference tournament and win Arch Madness, which we all know is an extremely difficult thing to do. But looking at those guys, they believe in the track record. We're going to see how that hard work really starts on Monday when they get here. And it's one thing to say these things, Jeff. It's another thing that once you get here and you go through and you got to prove it now with your actions and the buy-in. And when Coach Nagy starts getting on you, are you going to love that too? Because he is going to let you have it at times. He's not necessarily that yeller screamer constantly in practice, but can you handle his tough coaching? If you say, hey, I trust him, I trust his ways, well, that's going to start being shown on Monday morning when the Salukis finally roll out the basketball for the first time.
He's Luke Martin. He is the radio voice of the Southern Illinois Salukis on vacation wearing Southern Illinois gear. When was the last time you went out in public not wearing some sort of gear?
It's
just normal, plain clothes walking around town.
I did go see, actually, no, I was wearing a Salukis shirt. I was going to say, I went to go see Mission Impossible over the weekend, which, by the way, was outstanding. If you have not seen the last of the Mission Impossibles, Tom Cruise, another gem.
If I haven't seen the first 7 Mission Impossibles, is that a problem?
You're not going to see the last.
I mean, I haven't seen the first 7. Can I slide right in and watch number 8?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to judge you. So, all right. Now the whole Valley universe is going to judge you. But that's besides. You're used to that, Jeff Bidwell.
Look, if I want to watch old men just out running on the beach, I can. I don't know. I could probably do it for cheaper. But
Hey,
anyway,
I gotta find things to do, in the off season. So,
of course, well, your off season's been going for like 7 minutes. I mean,
yeah,
what are you,
7 minutes.
toddler? You need
So,
to be like, just read a book, go outside for a walk. But seriously, I mean, like, what I've always just laugh at coaches, because coaches, it's like especially
absolutely.
now that they wear pullovers during games. I was like, they don't go a day where they're just like, today is not team issued gear day, and I'm
Yes.
just going to go wear a white t-shirt and shorts out somewhere. So I
For
appreciate
you,
it. Look,
you
the
know,
folks in Under Armour, the folks at Learfield, the folks at at Southern Illinois University appreciate your commitment to the brand. I think
I
we can all.
I appreciate it. I'm sure they appreciate it, but you know what? I may take a selfie one of these days when
All right.
I'm not wearing Saluki gear, and I'll tag you. I'll tag Morty in the Valley. Jeff Bidwell. So
Greatly appreciated. Greatly appreciated. All right. Enjoy your 10 minutes of vacation coming up
yes.
before you got to head on over to practice on June 2nd. So thanks as always, brother, and we'll talk with you soon.
Appreciate it, Jeff, and thanks for all you do, brother. Doing a great job, enjoying this, and appreciate you having me coming on twice now. So maybe there'll be a third time.
Maybe so. Maybe so. I got Paul Oren saying I got to get him a watch or something, or something. With the three-timer club. So
I'm cheaper than Paul, so I'm a little bit cheaper.
He has fine tastes. We know that. So we got to try to live his life a little bit. So
thanks, Jeff. Have a good one, brother.
Man, you too. Thank you. There's Luke Martin, one of the good dudes in the Missouri Valley. All right, a couple other headlines from today before we get out of here. Valparaiso looking for a new assistant coach. AJ Moy has left Valpo, as he is now the athletic director at Jeffersonville High School in southern Indiana. I mean, it's right across the river from Louisville. Look, obviously a lifer there in Indiana, for a basketball a guy that had so much success, played at Indiana 2000, 2004, part of that 2002 national runner-up teams, been at Valpo for the last couple of years, but now, leaving the college game and heading down to the high school ranks, go be an athletic director, probably a little more, from a family standpoint, probably a little less erratic of a schedule and so on. But AJ, and again, these coaching changes, it's foolish for the most part to think that the vast majority of these are not surprises to the head coach and folks on the staff. But again, just a little late here in the spring as you're getting ready for summer workouts that Roger Powell needing to make a replacement on his staff there at Valpo. There has been a interesting development in the last couple of days as this has gone public. From Doug Gottlieb, the head coach at Green Bay, and certainly took a lot of flack last year as a first-time head coach, still keeping his radio show and all, and I think they ended up 4-28. It was not a great year of college hoops there at Green Bay, but I am 1,000,000% Team Gottlieb at this point, at least in this regard. The university is petitioning the NCAA to allow Green Bay to play in the basketball tournament, which has gone on for the last 10 years or so. You've seen it. It is the definition of summer programming on ESPN, where it is basically, it's 64 teams. It's a $1 million winner takes all cash prize. And what it has been it's generally alumni of colleges, or basically just names of the past that come back. Sometimes it's local guys that kind of, if they can find a way to qualify and get into the field, and then you're playing for $1 million. So Gottlieb is arguing to the NCAA that we should be allowed to play in this event. And because he says simply, it is not under NCAA jurisdiction. And his argument is that every 4 years, Division I college basketball teams are afforded the opportunity to go on an international trip, and they usually go play, sometimes it's professional teams, sometimes whatever teams they can get on some sort of international tour. Now, sometimes international means, hey, we're going to Italy, we're going to Spain, we're going to the Bahamas. Sometimes you're going to Canada, like whatever it may be. Not always exotic destinations, but you leave the country and you go play. Now, there are some components to this of, that every 4-year trip was meant as sort of a reward, I guess, of sorts from the NCAA of like, look, you can take your kids. That means basically once in their career, in that 4-year career, they can go, again, student athlete experience, go overseas or to Canada and go play. You get a couple exhibition games in the summer. And it's usually a very helpful experience, especially for, I know, from firsthand experience, just the way the math kind of checked out was, in 2011 at Murray State, when Steve Prohm was the first time head coach there, they went to Canada and they played. And that was before his first year. He never coached a game as a head coach, got to take a team. 4 years later, Matt McMahon, before his first year as a head coach, they went to Canada as well. But it's like you kind of, you get to work some stuff out as a head coach and all of that before you get into the season. But it also, it allowed 10 extra days of practice in the summer. The rules have changed over time. And certainly with all the transfer portal stuff, guys could probably work it where they go on an international trip every single year if they wanted. But Green Bay's argument is this event, if you let us play in it, which is not under NCAA jurisdiction, just like these international trips are not under NCAA jurisdiction, they can play the same role. And his point was, if you play overseas, they're not NCAA sanctioned. If I play this exact same game 3 hours to the north in Canada, everything's okay. It just doesn't make sense. And you're 100% right. It does not make sense. And especially when it comes down to, there's some other components of this cost, where, look, we've got to go, we're going to Italy, we're going to Canada, wherever we may be going, that it's like the amount of cost that is involved there. Some schools may not have any interest in doing that, especially now as we get into this house settlement era and all the money is being rearranged and trying to, squeeze pennies in a lot of ways so you can try to fund certain programs. This makes no sense. And I think on some level, there has been a concern of, well, there's the money at the end. Really? We're going to have that complaint about money right now when you have 32 essentially power schools or brand name schools going to Las Vegas to go play in this Players Era Festival and just for showing up in November, Thanksgiving week, they're going to get $1 million that they get to put into their NIL fund. This event, you've got to play, it's a field of 64. So you've got to play 6 games and you have to win all 6. And at the end of the rainbow, if you win, you get $1 million. Now, the AD for Green Bay, who is supportive of this, says he tried to dismiss the money and just be like, look, we can give it to charity. This is more of a principle we want to play. I'm to heck with the charity thing. Like that makes no sense to me. Let them keep it. Like if they win, let it go into the NIL pot. If you want to divvy it up 15 ways and let everybody get the same amount, so be it. If it wants to go into the general fund for NIL and all that, that should be fine. This makes zero sense. When you've got these big boy schools going out to Vegas and they just show up and they get handed a check for an NCAA sanctioned event and games that count. And this is just an exhibition situation. And you have to win 6 games. I don't even care if they have to win 6 games. If they just showed up and they just got money, like why is there some sort of barrier to entry here for college teams that want to play in this and play against former guys, whoever? If this event totally evolved into it was 64 mid-major schools that want to get in it and they're playing for $1 million, why is this a problem? And if there has to be some rotating basis because you can only play, because that's the hill we're going to die on as the NCAA, it makes no sense. The Horizon League commissioner is for it. The TBT, the folks in charge of it, are for it. They are in support of it. And the TBT president who talked with ESPN says he said 10 teams reach out with some varying degree of interest about this. It makes no sense why this would be frowned upon. If the frowning is simply about the dollars, I'm going to need you to just fall over yourself on that, because that makes zero sense. And again, this isn't even a, hey, we're giving you money to show up. Like, you actually have to earn it and win 6 games. I mean, from the negative standpoint, if you go to Italy and you go play 3 or 4 games, you're getting 3 or 4 games. I think it's 3 that you go play. You get to go see Italy. Fine. You play 3 games. Great. Well, if you come play in this tournament, you may end up going somewhere in, I don't know, who knows, Nashville or Columbus or Boise or whatever. And you go and you lose first game, you're done, and you're only getting 1. And so that's sort of the trade-off of that. But this makes no sense that this has not already been like, yeah, that's good, just go ahead and play. But sometimes with the NCAA, stuff gets harder than it needs to be. So we'll see how that. But if Green Bay goes, and I think this was a great idea from Gottlieb, and if Green Bay goes, I feel like this could be then the TBT needs to make the decision of, do we want this to now be a mid-major event? Where, I mean, I think that would draw more eyeballs than these alumni of these teams that, it's a very niche product right now. I mean, look, it's the middle of summer. People will watch it but if you put actual teams in there playing, I think you might have something cooking. And again, if it's winner take all, I mean, that is some serious stuff there. So I would love if that's what this turned into. And even if it was, you can only do it every couple of years or every other year or whatever you want to make it. But the rules of everything in college basketball have changed so significantly in the last couple of years, last 10 years, but certainly in the last 2, 3, 5, let alone since we started talking 50 minutes ago. Lord knows what's changed. I think this is a great idea. And I'm hoping that for Doug Gottlieb's sake, and for Green Bay's sake, and maybe mid-majors across the country's sake, that we will be able to make this work, and we'll see what happens with that. All right, one other piece of news on the women's side. Belmont has added the final piece to their roster. They have gone into the transfer portal, and they have signed KK Brody. She is a native of Columbia, Missouri, played her last 2 years at Pepperdine, 6'3" center, led Pepperdine in blocks the last couple of years, saw her playing time dip a little bit, was never a big scorer, only averaged about 1.5 points last year with Pepperdine, but certainly a rim protector. And that is what Bart Brooks is most excited about here, bringing her into Nashville as, again, 6'3", and that is significant, and somebody that has a pedigree the last 2 years of blocking shots. And so now the 15 is set for Belmont. You've got 8 returners, 2 transfers, including Brody, 5 freshmen coming in, and Belmont is, again, coming off a WIT championship game run, runner-up finish there in the WBIT, and they have just been one of the absolute beacons of consistency in college basketball, one of 9 teams in the country with 10 straight years of at least 20 wins, and Bart Brooks hoping to capitalize and make that another year this season in the 2025-26 campaign. All right, I think that does it for today on Morning in the Valley. Again, appreciate you being with us. If you haven't done so already, head over to YouTube, search out Morning in the Valley, subscribe to that page, like it, comment on it, subscribe, share, all that good stuff, and help us get in front of some more eyeballs. So appreciate the support as we close in on getting ready to start month number 3 of this little project. And again, hopefully you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed doing it, and looking forward to continuing this Monday, Wednesday, and Friday during the off season. 9 a.m. We'll be here with you, whether on X, YouTube, Facebook. We will be there. So we'll be back on Friday morning at 9 a.m. right here on Morning in the Valley.